Bullets. Please welcome to the stage director of the film, Matthew Millan. I'm going formal and calling you Matthew tonight. And I believe he's got some special guests he'd like to bring up as well.
Indeed. So we've got Hammuda Abidia, the philosopher of the film. We've got Harold Millan, producer and my dad. And we got Erik Niel, who is many hats. He helped with the underscore. He was one of the people who did the underscore. Film whisperer. A bunch of titles. So does anybody have any questions?
People are usually shy, and because we can't actually see your hands, because the light's very bright. So maybe wave if you have a question. But I'm going to start. We have somebody right off the hop. Yes. Repeat the question a bit too.
Okay, so she asked how many people spoke English in Libya, essentially. Quite a bit, actually, because you could tell I was there for about a year and my Arabic is terrible. So it's because people learned English from music, from television. And I mean, a lot of my friends spoke English as well as I did. And I mean, MC Swat learned it from listening to Tupac. So, and he's pretty much a scholar in English, actually, so, yeah.
Let's be honest, isn't that really how we all learn how to speak English? By listening to Tupac?
Yeah, that's...
Yes, right over here.
I was just wondering, were you there to do this story, or did this story happen while you were there?
Great question.
The story happened while I was there. I actually went just to film the revolution, and while all the reporters were going to the front line, laudably, of course, I found this music explosion happening right behind everybody. And there was just that one CNN report on it. Everybody else ignored it. And then when I saw Masroud for the first time, he juxtaposed the music in Benghazi with the fight on the front line. And he went to every front. And I mean, I've never met anyone like it. And I was so fortunate that I became really good friends with him. I hung out with him almost every day for like 7 or 8 months. And you'll never meet anybody like him. There was a short film that I was working on. It was barely mentioned in this. Mm-hmm. It's the first 4 days of the revolution, but it's about a man named Mahdi Zoo, who he was watching the Katiba, the fortress. He was watching the kids attack it, and he was freaking out because he was seeing the kids die. And he kept on saying every day, man, we need to open the gates of the Katiba. So then he's the one that got in his car with gas cylinders and TNT, and he rammed the anti-aircraft gun and damaged the gate, and then Masroud and all the guys poured through. And that truck you saw on it, Masroud was actually on that truck. Yeah. So, I mean, he was in every front. So.
I find it interesting, before we take the next question, I find it interesting just to go back to an off-the-cuff comment you just made, which was in response to the last question, which was, no, you were actually just going there to shoot something else, and this, you found this story. I just find it fascinating, and this isn't like prepared. We didn't talk about this beforehand. I find it so fascinating. I'm so thankful that there are filmmakers and photographers and reporters that are actually willing to go to parts of the world that might be under strife, or that we look through our televisions or our computer screens and we kind of look at it and then we go on to the next CNN breaking news item, Brangelina, and we just kind of so I always am so in awe of people who go to places to tell stories like this. That's just a comment I wanted to make.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
So what were you said you were just there to shoot something else. Was it the short film, or was it something else? What drew you to this part of the world to want to tell stories?
Hammuda. Hammuda is one of my best friends, and I hung out with him almost every day in LA. And he always talked about what Libya was like. And when the revolution happened, Hammuda, he had coffee with me, and he said, listen, man, I got to go back. It's my home. I need to be a part of this. And so he's like, well, you call yourself a filmmaker. Do you want to go? And my first response was, why would I want to be a part of a revolution? And then I went to Vegas to my brother's bachelor party. And I was looking around at everybody, and I was like, man, Libya sounds great at this point. I think I'm going to go to Libya. And I went up to my brother. I'm all, I really like your fiance, man. I'm really happy for you. Oh, by the way, I'm going to Libya before your wedding. So
Talk about a juxtaposition of two worlds, the extreme excess of Vegas, and
And a couple weeks later, I found myself stepping over the border into what was an abyss to me. I had no idea what I was getting into.
And you were there for 2 years?
No,
So
for
a
about a
year?
year total.
Okay.
Yeah. I went back several times. I went back. The last time was 2013.
Okay.
So when
Because you started this in 2011, correct?
Yeah, this has been a long project. Yeah.
It's the thing that's always so fascinating about documentaries. It's never, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
This has been an ultra marathon for me because we tried so many endings. We had one where we were going to get all the musicians to London. We were talking to Bruce Dickinson and Mark Knopfler, and unfortunately,
Really?
we couldn't get the visas to get them over.
Oh.
But then we ended up finding a more authentic ending.
Yeah.
I think it's just it's sad, but it's particularly with Masroud passing, but it's real.
Yeah.
And there is a sliver of hope in that. So, particularly with MC Swat, with his, that he enjoys the hate that he's getting. And, yeah. So.
Well, and that's the. Do we have any other questions? Right. Yeah. Right over here, and then we'll take you in the back. So right here.
I noticed that some of the singers were fighting. Were they part of a political faction? And if so, who was funding? Like, how were they actually being able to organize? And what political faction were they from?
Masroud was really the only of the musicians fighting, actually, and other people actually ended up imitating him. There's a famous photograph of a guy playing a guitar, which the guy was imitating Masroud because Masroud was the first guy, and he was not part of any faction. He just had a hatred of Gaddafi that ran very deep because he was arrested almost 30 times, and it was over his house because there was an internal security agent, an Egyptian guy that worked for Gaddafi, and he just decided he wanted the house. So he stole it, and he got away with it. Masroud went to court for many years. He actually won the court case, but the DA was good friends with this guy. And so they kept on throwing him in prison to the point where in 2010, Masroud rounds up a bunch of Egyptian workers. He goes to the house. They break into the house. They take all the guy's stuff out, inventory everything. They have witnesses all around to show they didn't steal anything, and he levels the house. And then he tells the guy, I decided you can have it. And he did this, under Gaddafi's regime still. And the DA even reported he once said, we have to get rid of this guy, help us. And Gaddafi thought it was hilarious. So the guy to have such cojones
Wow.
and I mean, this meant, you will never meet he was what Bob Marley wanted to be to me, the Masroud. But he genuinely meant, I mean, he was very upset when people didn't put down their weapons because it was not the time anymore. And he meant it when he said, it's time for strings, the time for bullets is over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Which is very powerful. There was somebody at the back with your hand up? Oh, great.
Yeah,
Is the soundtrack-
and it will be available, but it's available online on my SoundCloud. So the SoundCloud it's called Stronger Than Bullets on SoundCloud. And it's not everything because, I mean, there's like 300 songs at least that Dado did, and that's just what Dado did. And he was one of a number of producers, but he was kind of the father figure and the most talented musician out of everybody, so everybody gravitated toward him.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, there's too many songs, but pretty much every song you heard with singing in it. There was an underscore that we did later to give the kind of a rock and roll attitude throughout the whole thing. And Gaddafi has his theme that you had to have a dirty swagger, so we had the Motorhead type bass. But the rest of it, it's all Libyan music. You heard the country song, you heard the song, that beautiful soul song at the end, the Angel Wings. That just every time just floors me how amazing that song is.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, and I mean the music coming out was just staggering. It was truly, I would never have expected that, it's not quite. We will have a soundtrack, but it's not ready yet. So, but if you want to get a sample, a very large sample, that even we did the heavy metal version of the Libyan national anthem. That's just fantastic. But it will be available, but you can listen to most of the music now as well. So, or at least a good portion, maybe 30% of it. So there's just so much. Yeah.
And it'll be available when? We don't know yet.
That's a TBD.
Okay.
Truly to be determined. So.
Okay. Hands up. There was someone else. Yeah, at the back. Yeah.
Someone asked part of my question, and that was, how were these guys feeling while they were always in the studio? How were they getting money? If they had a funder, how is the funder spending money for the restoration of Libya right now? If the funder could be so generous all that period, we should be more generous at least.
Well, they didn't really have a funder, but do you want to take this one?
I couldn't hear the whole
She was
question.
asking how were these basically, how are they subsiding? Were they being funded by somebody, and why wasn't this person funding Libya to be a better place? Like, how was everybody living?
Okay, nobody pay a penny, okay, for this artist. Actually, they are the one who pay for even the microphone, like Masoud. He get allowance for like 2,000 dinars, it's equivalent to 1,000 Libyan, American dollar. He end up buying microphones and, stands, okay, for his concert. So none of them pay him anything, really. And what's the other one?
He got the allowance because the National Transitional Council decided to pay all the people who fought an allowance. And they ended up paying all the people who fought and about, 4 times as many people who actually even stepped on the front line, because people just started claiming that they fought. And a lot of these militias formed after the fact. I mean, Ansar al-Sharia, the ones who killed Ambassador Stevens, they were gangbangers when I lived there. You could see them in their corner. They had a Toyota Hilux with an anti-aircraft gun and an Osama bin Laden in memoriam on the back of the truck. Yeah. And even one of the dudes, he'd always see me and he's like, "Hey, Matthew, Matthew." And little did I know what they would become.
Wow.
At the time, there was no violence in the city for almost a year.
Yeah.
And I mean, the big story when I lived there, beside that, there was that gun battle, but that was thieves trying to steal a bunch of Toyota Hiluxes. And that was one of the militias just that lived right next to where we lived just tried to stop them. So, and stupidly, we got caught in the middle of it. And, yeah.
That's what happens when you're shooting a documentary. Yeah, right over here.
So I noticed there's very few women in the streets or in the music. Where were all the women?
Okay, that is a good question. One of them, it was harder because a lot of the women didn't want me to film them, but there are actually quite a few female musicians. But it was real problem trying to, I mean, those 2 girls, I was very lucky that they would allow us to film them. But a lot of them, one of the girls, actually one of that girl, we had a lot of footage where she's in the studio, but we weren't allowed to film her. She just said no, she doesn't want to be on film, and that's very common. Now in the streets, it's actually, I mean, you see a lot of women on the streets in Benghazi.
Show them, okay, it's not like they used to be. The society becoming more, okay, the society became, it used to be liberal, okay, when Libya get its independence, but with Gaddafi and late in Gaddafi regime, okay, most of the people, they became like, kind of Islamist, okay. So they start wearing this scarf you see in the film and black dress or something, even though they are not religious, okay, but it is because the people start getting poor and they cannot afford the makeup and the flashy stuff. And the people, they became more conservative. So, I mean, there is no presence. I mean, even though Gaddafi, okay, one of his good stuff, he appointed judges in Islamic societies, as women judges. And that was amazing, okay. But he deprived them from everything else. So the women have no time, okay, to be in the street and socially, okay, they are not allowed to do that stuff.
Except that you see the younger generation is changing. Because when I was there, it was more common to see women in the streets than.
We
Yeah.
do, but lack of security at the time, okay, you cannot see women there.
Okay.
I think yeah, right over here. Yes, you.
Actually, this is more just an elaboration for when we were there. So there was part in the film, the documentary, that when they were discussing, he was like, I have no money, and the festival with people coming together, and actually the financial part of it said, Inshallah, which really resonated with me because that's God willing. That's like, you have nothing, you will meet God.
That's Libyan humor, too. Yeah.
Also, it's just a Muslim humor. I come from a Somali Muslim background, and a lot of what that has happened in Libya also resonates with us because we've gone through a very similar thing where we went through a dictatorship, then the next powers came in, and like nothing really changed. And one of the tactics usually is actually attacking the artists because artists are very powerful in the messages that they carry. And what is ironic to me is that here we are attacking the artists and getting rid of them because they're a threat, but it's the artists that go to other countries and yearn for their country and empower the people. And like they never truly leave. And you, sir, when you said I wanted to go back to my kingdom, those are words that my mother said one day. Yeah, that was just an inspiration. So thank you. And yeah, and one more with the women. I think one of the social aspects or like the important aspects we miss is often women are not shown, not just because of the culture, because in jail women have a lot more responsibility. So we don't put ourselves in front because we're always afraid of what's going to happen to our family. So it's not that we cannot and we won't, it's just more like there's more of an impact. And with a 42-year dictatorship, you have to understand these people are not just willing to put everything their entire families in danger. And I was really happy to actually see the two singing that you showed.
There were actually quite a bit more, too. It was not, I mean, it was still quite a bit more guys singing, but still, it was pretty astonishing how many women came out to sing and how many, I mean, particularly talented singers, too. And there was a female guitarist that was just genius, and I really wish we could have had her on it. I mean, she was just like, wow. You know, that's cinema gold, man.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, we have time for one more. Yeah, gentleman there.
If I understand it properly, the revolution went on, and then when you were going to do the concert, it was more or less hijacked by these other people that came in. Is that correct? And my impression is from that you have the people that were fighting, and they won the war, but then it was hijacked by other people that came in with the more conservatism of the talk about Muslim Brotherhood. Is that correct?
indeed. I mean, you actually saw something similar in Mali with the Tuareg uprising. And then, Ansar al-Din, Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, came in, and just after the Tuareg, won their uprising, then they got defeated by Ansar al-Din. So, and this was very similar to this. Suddenly, all these strange groups appeared. I remember it was around February. It was around the time of the festival. That's when the military, the Commonwealth Cemetery, was just absolutely laid to waste. But the story I didn't tell, and I really wish I could, is a week later, the citizens of Benghazi went and repaired it completely. So you wouldn't even tell. You couldn't even tell that destruction you saw there. I went right after, and I was like, wow. And then I came back. It was like a week and a half later, and it was like it was just completely done. It was like 1945 when it was done. So.
Maybe you can tell them the week after Ambassador Stevens was killed about the citizens of Benghazi.
Oh yeah, I have a real gripe with 13 Hours, for a number of reasons. One of which was if you could see Benghazi, they completely got it wrong, and I understand they filmed it in Malta, but the other reason. Wait, can you say the question again?
No, so what happened is what the citizens of
Oh.
Benghazi did to the militias after the militias killed the ambassador.
So first off, I think how many Libyans died defending the ambassador? It was like 9 or 10.
I
Yeah, it was.
Actually, he's get rescued by, you know, I mean, by standard Libyans who just broke there to the embassy to save them, you know, or to save whoever there, okay? And he was alive when he took him up from there.
So what people don't tend to understand because of media reporting is how much Ambassador Stevens was beloved. I mean, he was the ultimate. He was Brad Pitt times 1,000 in Libya. I mean, he was eating at people's houses constantly, and so what happened afterward? This was just a few days afterward. That after Friday prayers, that a bunch of the youth, thousands of youth, attacked the Ansar al-Sharia base. Many of them died. Many of them died, but they kicked Ansar al-Sharia out for a while. And they didn't have weapons. It was like the same thing with the Katiba. They just kept on charging. Because I mean, even the head of the Muslim Brotherhood in Libya.
27 tested.
Yeah, 27, okay.
They died that day.
And even the head of the Muslim Brotherhood was crying when Ambassador Stevens died. I mean, that he was that much of a figurehead, and he really did genuinely care about Libyans. And if anybody was an honorary Libyan, it was him. Yeah,
Wow.
he was the greatest ally Libya could have had. And when he died, that was a turning point, man. That was a real turning point. And you could just, so many of my friends, their heads, you just saw it in them that how are we going to recover from this?
It's like, this is not good,
Yeah, and then, you know, that everybody's going to turn their backs on us.
Right.
And lo and behold, everybody turned their backs on him. And, I mean, the infrastructure, that's one thing. Gaddafi committed many, many crimes that I could go for hours on. But the greatest crime was not investing in infrastructure at all. He invested in infrastructure in the rest of Africa, but not in his own country, particularly the East. Right. And you could see it. Benghazi looked like it was war-torn, and it was barely even touched by war. Now it's completely devastated by what happens. So, yeah.
I think this is one of those Q&As that could go on for another hour, which is great, but we have another show coming in, so
Okay.
it can't go for another hour. The film screening again, though, on Sunday afternoon, I believe at Eau Claire. Check your schedule. So tell all your friends. You won't be here because you're going to Russia tomorrow, I believe,
yeah.
right? You'll be here. Okay. I just want to thank you guys so much. It's part of the joy of programming films is just finding stories that just completely take you by surprise, and especially when I'm looking at music films, and it's such a powerful message in this film. It's so timely that we couldn't be happier that to have you here for your world premiere. And I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much, everybody.
And please remember to vote for the Audience Award on your way out. Thank you so much.